Yeah, maybe.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm not gonna like do anything crazy, but some of that virtual poker.
Yeah, let me know when you're heading back, and I'll let you know.
All right, sounds good.
All right, I'll see you.
All right, later.
So I am super excited to say that I was finally able to pick up one of my attainable dream cars. This has got to be one of the best vehicles, best sleepers you can get for under 15K right now, if you could find them that low, I should say. What this is, as you may see, is a Mercedes E-Class. It's a 2013, not an E350, an E550. So that means it does come with that V8 up front, 7-speed in the middle, all-wheel drive around all 4 corners, and tons of really great options all in the middle. So I kind of want to take you guys through this, my journey with this car, what I plan on doing with it, everything that I plan on modifying to it, everything that is wrong with it that I still need to fix, little things here and there. So if that type of stuff interests you, definitely hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss any of the vehicle videos that I plan on putting out about this this car, everything that I plan on doing with it, everything that needs to be done with it, everything that's wrong with it, etc., etc. You get the point. I'm basically like a baby Hoovy at this point. Shout out to my man Hoovy there. Now there is a reason why these vehicles are all over the road. The W212 chassis has been around for a while now. They just stopped making it, I think about 4 or 5 years ago. They moved on to the next chassis. However, this has been the workhorse of a lot of the European taxi companies and things like that. They last a very long time. They're incredibly well built. A multi-billion-dollar investment was made to research and develop these cars. They are very, very nice. And the motor in this one is the same one that you might find in the S550 of a similar year. So you would actually get the S-Class motor and that S-Class transmission in a vehicle like this. Now, it's not the exact transmission, but they're very, very similar. And I think in some options, they do come with the same one. But you are able to get all that power detuned, albeit from the factory, which you can very easily unlock, as I had mentioned. But in a very much more attainable package. So a lot of the S-Classes have some very cutting edge technology, so you can find them super cheap, but you end up paying a shit ton in the future because you got to pay for all the high-end electronics that were cutting edge at the time that may not be all that reliable. They're trying stuff with the S-Class. You see a lot of those features trickle down to other cars and other brands as well. So these things are beautifully built. They have a ton of community behind them, a ton of aftermarket parts if you need them as well that are just as good as some of the OEMs and some of which that are not. But there's a lot of stuff you can actually DIY in these vehicles as well. They're not as scary as you might think. They are essentially a mid-size average sedan from Mercedes with a big ol' honking V8 up front. And I don't know what else could be better than that. So obviously one of the big things about this vehicle that I loved was that motor choice. So that 4.6 twin turbo V8 is extremely detuned from the factory, just around 400 horsepower, which can be tuned way over 500, almost 540 horsepower and almost 700 pound-foot of torque with something like a Rentec tune. And it's all within OEM spec, and you will absolutely dust anyone else on the road. I don't care who it is, as if it's not a purpose-built sports car, or even if it is in a lot of cases, this thing will absolutely walk it. I've walked Camaros, brand new Mustangs with dealer plates still on them, walked them all the way to 140, 130 down in Mexico with absolutely no issues. So very, very satisfied with the performance, stock and tuned as well. And we could probably do a performance comparison as we can, because I can tune back right to stock and go back to the tune so we can see how much of a difference it really did make. Some of the other features that I may be changing in the future are these taillights. Now this is a very nice LED array in the back. It fits the vehicle very well. You can get drop-in replacements that are the new style, so they would have a little bit more of a curved LED up front. I don't know if it'll fit the style of the vehicle very well. They do look very nice. However, as a more square body, I think I might be keeping it more OEM, but tell me what you guys think. And then obviously getting a rear diffuser from the AMG series of this vehicle, the AMG rear duct spoiler. I may go with that. I kind of do like the slick design. Again, we're not going to be doing anything crazy here, all OEM stuff, very tasteful stuff, nothing, no big wing on the back, nothing like that. Next, I guess we'll take a look at this beautiful masterpiece underneath this hood right here. As I mentioned, this is the 4.6 twin turbo V8 under here. You might see the glimmering shine of some duct tape because that is actually an official fix for these really terrible air intakes right here. They fall apart because the oil filter is right on top. You take them off, they're made out of like silly string. It just doesn't hold together. So I'm gonna get those replaced soon. Right now I got some duct tape keeping them in place, no problem. And doing a lot of the maintenance on these motors, like oil changes, tune-ups, is not that hard. I was able to do coil packs and plugs on this thing with a little bit of help. No problem, really. And it wasn't that crazy of a job. It was a little bit tight for sure. I got some battle scars on my hands, but of course you save $400, $500, $600 by doing it. It took me about 4 hours, which definitely isn't bad, and allows me to keep the engine running on its tip-top shape, especially with this new tune. Other things you will have to go to a shop for that has some better toolage and some better knowledge. For example, the engine mounts on this vehicle usually need to be replaced at around 100,000. I am getting some weird vibrations, so I will have to get those done hopefully by summer, and that is looking at around a $1,500 to $2,000 job depending on where you go, just because you have to drop the whole subframe, lift the motor up, and get to those motor mounts. You can barely see them down within here, and it makes it a real pain in the ass, especially with the 4MATIC. If you have any other E-Class that's rear-wheel drive, or you have an E350 with 4MATIC or any other smaller motor, it's no problem. You can get those done, pretty much do it at your house if you really needed to. So that is one of the downfalls with this motor here. And when a car drives as nice as this one does, and these Mercedes do, people are gonna wanna keep them driving like new because they just drive that nicely. This thing is exciting, so I can understand why the community around this really rallies to try to make sure that anything that can go wrong has gone wrong and has already been documented in an easy way to fix it. The software, if you know where to look, is readily out there, so you can actually get dealer level control of this engine, all these computers in here, if you needed to. So you really shouldn't be afraid of, doing maintenance on these vehicles, keeping them up to speed and where they should be. If you are at all slightly mechanically inclined, which I barely am, you can do some of the things that I had done already, just simple stuff like a tune-up. And speaking of issues, the aforementioned motor mounts are definitely something that I need to address in this vehicle, hopefully before summer, so I can get a nice, clean, smooth ride through the hot weather. But also, we do have a little bit of a shimmy in the driveline, which these things are known to sort of beat up sort of the flex discs and connectors in that driveline going to the transfer case and differentials. The parts are definitely not cheap. They're under $100 for a flex disc replacement kit. Getting the labor in to do that is not too crazy either. We have to drop some pans, the exhaust, but nothing crazy to get to that driveline, much like any other vehicle that you would run into. And I just had my mechanic throw on some brakes on here. They do come with sensors in here as well. Brake pads were about $75 with the sensors and the kit and all the hardware to do it. Rotors were around $300 up front. These do have a known issue to warp rotors fairly quickly, and about a month in, with some somewhat spirited driving, being aware that I'm not trying to beat on the brakes, I do have a little bit of a shimmy as well. I didn't go quite OEM, those were around $500 just for the front. I did save a little bit and went with centric rotors, which had great reviews, and I don't think my results would have been much different going with OEM or Zimmerman, which is the original manufacturer of these rotors, but they're slotted and drilled up front and slotted in the rear, so you should get fantastic braking, and they're not crazy expensive when it comes to a higher end performance vehicle like this. In fact, most of the components on here share everything with the E350 instead of the E63, which in performance, this is much more similar to. Once I get those Bilstein shocks in there and those H&R lowering springs, it'll basically sit exactly how an E63 does, should perform basically how an E63 does, and hopefully once we get that exhaust fixed up and I remove one of the resonators in there, it will sound just like an AMG as well. But don't get me wrong, this is not an AMG. I will never claim it to be an AMG. You will never see any AMG badges on here. This is a very truthfully tuned E550, and I think it is one of the best sleepers, best vehicles that you're gonna get for around 15 grand. Now with the market as crazy as it is right now, it is very hard to find nice cars with low miles for a great price. And if you do, there's probably something wrong with them. And if it's too good to be true, run. Thankfully, I was able to find this in a private sale, and I don't think the guy really knew what he had, but I gave him a little bit under his asking, which was about 16. I got a little bit less than that, and I was able to get a car that needed a new battery at start, which was around $200, so definitely not crazy. And the little things that I had just mentioned, which needs to be addressed, which are not going to be too hard. It's going to take a little bit of money, a little bit of time, but we have a couple more months till summer. I have no problem in thinking that we can get all of that done to make this a completely flawless ride. So with all that performance and agility that I'm talking about, let's get behind the wheel and take it for a ride.
All right, so you'll probably notice I'm wearing something a little bit different. It's actually been a little bit of time since the last time I made the video. But we're gonna go ahead and take it for a quick ride now. I'm gonna show you exactly what I love about this vehicle, why it's so fun and exciting to drive, and maybe why you guys should look at one for yourselves if you could find one. But you know, one of the reasons why I wasn't able to film in the same sort of time sphere as the original parts of this video was really just because there was some things with this vehicle that I needed to get done, and I was hoping to make more videos about, which I still will, but did have to get addressed a little bit sooner than later, so I couldn't actually be driving around kind of giving it the beans, if you will, in that situation. And I'll definitely make some more videos on that in the future so you guys can know exactly what repair process I had to go to, the problems that you typically would expect with the 4MATIC, with this M278 motor, and everything else kind of in this chassis, which, spoiler alert, there's not much. There's a few things on this specific motor, but it's really not that crazy. Now, actually getting behind the wheel of this car, even it having 540 horsepower and almost 700 pound-foot of torque, you really would never know. It drives, it acts, it sounds, and it starts up just like stock. Getting into it, because this is 4MATIC, you grip and go. Now with the 4MATIC, it's not really designed for this much power, so you don't want to go flooring it from zero. I didn't there. I mean, that was half a throttle, and that's really what you want to do, especially going around corners and stuff like that. So you're not going to have as much fun as you would in the, you know, regular rear-wheel drive E550s or E63s, just because rear-wheel drive is a lot more fun. You can throw it around corners, you can slide a little bit, you don't have to worry about any differentials or anything like that. But with the 4MATIC, you get the all-wheel drive and the daily driver capability that you typically wouldn't be able to have in New England, where I am, in a rear-wheel drive car. But the handling in this car, it's a lot better than the car I came from, which was a 2014 Buick LaCrosse. It's definitely a larger sedan. It's a lot harder, or a little bit harder, I should say, than that Buick, but it still offers some great handling and some great dynamics. It's very predictable, which is the thing that I absolutely love about it. It's a predictable drive, so you know what you're getting. And the power, stock was completely linear. It felt like a naturally aspirated motor, honestly. But then you also were missing about 150 horsepower. And now that you put this, you know, I have this tune in, you know, from 1,500 to 3,000 RPM, that's typically where I find myself, you know, getting onto highways and stuff, and that's still more or less, you know, stock power. I mean, you're not getting into many of the changes of this tune until a little bit further in the rev range, something like 5,000 or 6,000 RPM. Passing, I absolutely love in this car. The ride is fantastic. I actually have a cracked spring in the back that I'm getting replaced very, very soon. But the ride quality is fantastic. These are original shocks, original coil springs, original everything. There's no air suspension in this vehicle. I don't know if I mentioned that already, but that's one of the things that you got to look out for on these cars. So overall, a pretty fantastic drive. I mean, I have really no complaints about this. The transmission shifts very smoothly in eco, very smoothly in sport. And something else that I'm going to get into is programming different modules and different computers in this car to give you some extra features that you may not have had before in this exact vehicle. I still do get around 27 miles per gallon on the highway if I'm babying it. Cruise control, going the speed limit, which is better than my Buick was, and this has a shit ton more power in it. So, and then around town and around the city combined, I mean, just in the city, if I'm having fun, yeah, 15, 16 miles per gallon, which really, again, is not bad. I mean, any other naturally aspirated motor is getting 7 to 8 miles per gallon, any other older E550. Oh, but the sound too. And this is a stock exhaust. This is, I mean, everything's stock in except for the tune. So I got a lot of plans for this car. I'm very excited for it. I'm excited for the next year or two to be able to correct the paint, to be able to really make this thing look as well as it runs, and make it run a little bit better too. If you're excited about that sort of stuff, definitely hit the like, definitely hit the subscribe. Look forward to seeing you in the next videos. And for now, that's it. Appreciate you watching. I'll see you in the next one.